the personality type of the generation that's supposed to help get us out of this situation from a history standpoint are the millennials. And what I fear has happened is that the powers that be understand that history is cyclical. I think that's almost an indisputable thing. But once you start studying it and you see the patterns, but because they understand that, they have the ability to wage what I call multi-generational warfare based on the archetype of personality.
And good afternoon, everyone. Got Jeff Raymond with me. Remember, I was testing and still am testing the Eden Grow System. Remember, we're going to need to think about bringing our food growing indoors to A, to protect it, and B, for some of the changes that we're seeing in the climate.
And I think that's what we're headed towards. And I think we ultimately, we didn't talk about it too much, but I think we need to start talking about second economy. We need to start figuring out ways to spin up stuff offline from the major systems so that we can have communication, so we can have transactions, so we can have community. Yeah.
You're going to be responsible for a lot more things moving forward. And, we can talk about this. And I'm just wondering, the point we've come from 2001 to now, I mean, you go 20 more years into the future, that's just 20 more years of this thing getting consolidated more and more. I wonder if there's going to be a break point in the future.
Well, I see from my faith standpoint, I think 20 years in the future, things are going to be radically different, one way or the other. Uh, but from a where we're at right now phase, I think you're right. I used to be a normie, and I served in the military, raised conservative, came into my own, probably be considered more libertarian now than anything. But even that, I'm seeing the uniparty, concept is definitely alive and well. I think the problem, reaction, solution is they call in the powers that be, call in whatever side is going to work best to move towards the same thing. But I think if we look at the big picture, zoom out over the course of the last few decades, even maybe the last 80 years, we've seen large governments across the planet start to get larger, more centralized. And then you get the whole private public partnership thing that has taken over to where it's, they use the government looking bad to be able to give the corporations more power, but corporations look bad, give the government more oversight. Bottom line is both of them are moving towards more control, more power, a collection of these capabilities. It's just when you zoom out and see it, you see that's what the pattern is that seems to be happening, is more and more consolidated, higher level power and control. So you do, like you said, you need to be able to do more work. You need to be able to get up and think about safety, think about security for yourself, for your family. You need to think about providing for yourself, for your family, and that takes time. I just finished reading the Fourth Turning book. It was
Oh,
published when
that's
I
a good one.
graduated.
Strauss and Howe, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I was blown away with, it's published in '97, and the predictions that they went through in there, not biblical, not anything like that, just looking at history and doing what historians do and looking for patterns. I was blown away with the 80-year cycle roughly, and broken into 20-year periods. But I was really interested in how each of those 20-year seasons generates a particular personality type. And what I worry right now, without going into the whole book, because that's a whole nother thing, but is the personality type of the generation that's supposed to help get us out of this situation from a history standpoint are the millennials. And what I fear has happened is that the powers that be understand that history is cyclical. I think that's almost an indisputable thing. But once you start studying it and you see the patterns, but because they understand that, they have the ability to wage what I call multi-generational warfare. Right? Forget fifth generational warfare. We're talking multi-generational warfare, where you look into the future based off of this cyclical nature and you can actually wage war way into the future just by knowing what to do based on the archetype of personality that's going to be developed corporately in a generation. And I think what's happened to us, and I say us as in the United States, but of what I really, because your point that everything's become very globalized, is instead of each nation having its own little fourth turning event, its own little history, they've all kind of merged now into one big global society where we're all kind of different flavors of the same thing.
Howdy, partner. You know people are having dinner and the smart ones are eating beef. Let me tell you a brief history, or more accurately, a beef history of dinner. Domestication of cattle happened around 8000 BC, but that's not when beef became what's for dinner. We've been eating beef since times before history. The earliest cave paintings have beef eloquently depicted on the walls. Those cave drawings of the hunt were for the aurochs, a primitive bovine. That's right, beef. Like I said, people are having dinner now, and the smart ones, well, they're eating beef. Americans want great food today, but we also want to have great food to eat if things go south in a hurry. Unlike most companies that take the cheapest, worst parts of the cow, then turn them into beef crumbles, whatever that is. They freeze dry them in hopes that their customers will never actually try to eat it. Our premium beef cubes are sous vide, freeze dried, and ready to be eaten right now, or in a decade from now. We want you to eat our beef now, so you can buy more. Prep with steaks, not with beef crumbles. This is a high-quality product. It's all American beef and 100% natural. None of that craziness of lab-grown meat and mRNA jabs. Our beef has a shelf life of 10 plus years. This is high-quality cooked and freeze-dried beef for long-term storage or not. Eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Click the link in the description to get your Prepper beef with Prepper All Naturals, so you will always know what's for dinner.
To me, it's starting to seem, just through my observations, my opinion, that somebody definitely understands multi-generational warfare. I think it's demonic. And those demonic powers have waged this multi-generational warfare. They've attacked the generation that is supposed to be what's called the hero generation, the ones that I've had enough and I'm going to stand up and fight for what is right. And what they've done is they changed their behavior, they changed their natural God-given talents, and they've attacked their will to want to stand up. Like you said, who's going to go fight for this organization, right? Well, I think that's happened corporately for countries. You know, who's going to go fight for this country because look at how bad they are. I think there's some pretty bad stuff going on, and we just need to be ready. We need to work together. We need to find communities. I think the second economy is definitely the way to go. And that's kind of where I'm pointing things at in my personal life right now, is getting ready for that.
Yeah, you have to identify the problem. So as you know, Jeff and I talked today, it's not about just talking about the problem. Have you noticed that we've interlaced several solutions into this? Because I'll just say one thing on Strauss and Howe, that fourth turning is 80 years. And 5 of those cycles is one grand solar minimum 400-year cycle. So when we're talking about heavier, more powerful cycles interlooping with some of these smaller cycles and vice versa, and then we come out with 5 of those as a 2,000-year cycle, and we can start to see how all of these intertwine even on an 80-year cycle compared to a 2,000-year cycle. And you know, just different, gears in the back of a Swiss watch. But one thing, if we go back to the last turning, which would have been post-World War II, that was about getting everybody off of the farms into the cities and into the neighborhoods. For those of you who don't understand, a little over 90% of everybody working in the American workforce up until 1937 was involved in farming, had roots on the farm, had some sort of agrarian subsistence in their families at a direct, my brother works on a farm. Everybody, 90% of the people were either directly involved in agriculture or had family or had come from that agriculture that still held farmlands. So that turning was about getting everybody off of the farms and into the cities, into this consumptive model. Then air conditioning came out in the 1940s and people started to spend more time indoors. Now, you might not think air conditioning, but everybody used to hang out. If you ever go to some of the older neighborhoods and you got those houses that everybody has this huge front porch and you could see the neighbor
Yeah.
kids all the way down, that was because there was no AC. So everybody knew everybody in the neighborhood. Once air conditioning started, that was at first, people started to come in. Not as many people were out at night. They were enjoying the luxury of aircon. No different than everybody, with their, what was that? The first one you could play a cassette and you could listen to Walkman.
Oh, the Walkman. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Walkman.
people are like, that'll never catch on. And, you're going to make people into zombies. They're just going to listen to their own music compared to the radio stations. Okay. But then that whole shift was to take everybody off the farms and get them into the cities after the war. But spin that back one cycle before that, it takes us into the 1860s. Now you might jump and go, oh, Civil War. Okay. But another thing that occurred that time was they took us off the bimetallic system. And what I mean, gold and silver used to be used as monies in America. But during that 1860s transition, as we rolled into like late 1870, early like 81 or 82, 1882, we had gone off the silver system and it was predominantly a gold system at that point. Then the Federal Reserve just starts less than 20 years after that. So that whole transition as well from a different segment of society being morphed and bent into now, oh, there's only a single type of money, gold-backed system. Now you're not your bimetallic system any longer. And then the whole Federal Reserve was started. And that modernization push of putting all the roads in, putting all the electric in to spin that next segment and getting ready for society's next jump and shift, which would occurred in the 40s. So, what you're seeing is prepositioning and planning now is like 20 years ahead of where you're really going to be going to. So, and you could just keep going back in time and doing this again and again, but these are two examples I thought I'd use there. The fort turning, it's always vast, tremendous changes. Like my grandparents never could understand us kids in the 80s growing up.
Yep.
Like, you kids, you don't know.
You don't appreciate
just like we look at the kids today, you're like, this is impossible. How could you even think like that? My grandparents experienced me saying the same stuff,
Yep. Yeah, no, it really is interesting when you get into it. Again, I know that's a whole nother episode, but I think we're seeing those things happen. And I'm finishing reading his second book, which was published in 2023, where he kind of reviews what he did back then and then how correct he was. And the guy's been completely vindicated. He like nailed it. Back in 97, he's like, there's going to be, probably a global pandemic. There's going to be like a world war, he said, these are all things that might happen. And then it's like, basically you check them all off because they have happened or are underway of happening. And the fourth turning, like you said, it's one of those things that's an event that we can't really imagine because it's going to pull on society. It's the death of society as we know it, essentially. It's a
rebirth, like the phoenix every time.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the winter season. That's what the fourth turning is. It's the death, just like winter for Earth. Everything dies. It gets covered, compressed by snow, regurgitated back up, lots of water, lots of falling, lots of darkness. And then come spring, you have this generation that, rebuilds everything. And I'm not a huge historian, but I'm starting to understand the importance of understanding history a lot better. You're more educated in it than I am, David. That's why I like watching your channel.
I'm a neophyte compared to so many others. I just know what I know, but there's so many that are thousands of times above that can like literally recite encyclopedias. That they got that photographic memory and they're just like, well, you try to have a conversation with them. You're just like,
Yeah, I'm a first principles guy. Like I read this stuff just to understand the principles, and then I understand those principles and I try to apply them to my life. And right now, honestly, people around me that I love and care about and trust, we're all sitting here going, well, what does this all mean? Where do we go? What do we do? Well, how should we be preparing ourselves for what is coming next? And what I'm getting as a general response is we don't know. Like we are going into an unknown. Everyone who says this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, I say what the Bible says is what's going to happen, but even then I'm like, I don't know when it's going to happen, I don't know how it's going to happen. And at this point I'm like, I'm along on a ride here, and I'm trying every day. I pray and I'm asking the Lord for guidance and help. I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to talk, I'm trying to share. It's the only thing I know how to do.
But I will say one thing that is 1000% certain. You need food and water in your body to continue to the next chapter of whatever life, society, and this earth brings us. You can't continue to live with no food. And this is the most widely used control mechanism through history is starvation, siege, removing food from people, whether you want to invade their castle or whether you want to give them plenty or you want to reward them or do you want to punish them or whatever. Like these, even in the 1930s, after the Bolshevik Revolution, and then you look at the Holodomor. I mean, that's not widely talked about, but that is one of the greatest instances of food being used as a weapon and a group of those producing food demonized as you have to have the group that everybody points the fingers to because they were becoming so wealthy because all they did was buy new machines to produce wheat and they tripled their output. And that was like a wow. And they started to add fertilizer. This is pre-green revolution here. You don't realize like the absolutely, staggering, just drop off the side of your chair gains in yield that we really achieved in the 1950s. Well, if you go back into the late 1920s, they were at the apex too of, instead of using people with plowshares and buffalo and this sort of thing, like the old world as we understood, like old animal husbandry, plowing types of thing, moved into the mechanized arena. And those that could plow, fields 50 times faster than a bull and do 50 times more acreage in the same days, obviously are going to be able to plant more seed and harvest more seed and have more, bountiful exports. Well, the only reason those people came together and got machinery, but because they did that and they went against the old ways and they were producing so much food and making so much money off the export sales for the wheat, they're like, the whole rest, everywhere else around in the surrounding region is poor because of those people.
Well, that's part of why I think going indoors, protecting
indoor growing. Yeah.
Yeah. I it is self-serving. I'm a guy who just says it how it is. I'm running a company where we sell indoor systems. Well, the reason though I'm doing that is because I have concluded a while ago, because of the environmental factors, the security factors, the variability factors, just the pure variability of everything that's out there. I need something that's more secure, more controllable in order to take care of my family and myself. So yeah, whether you get an eat and grow systems solution or I don't care whoever else you get, I'm here to help people go get something, start growing indoors, learn what it takes, DIY, whatever you want to do. But David's right, y'all. He's been right for a long time, and you need to start growing food, and you need to be ready for what's coming.
Just a generalist, you can see the trend, but the specifics within the trend, those are high. The hardest thing is calling the timing on those specific events, but you can see the trend where it's going. I listen to a lot of people that forecast out and they're like, I didn't forecast anything. I read all the documents and just presented it to you, what the plans were. So there's a lot of this going on where there's foretold events in sequence that are being rolled out or staged to bring us to this next phase of humanity. Well, if you already know that's where they're going to, then you're just kind of marking off events in time as the next bicycle chain link moves through, and then that sprocket moves to the next gear. It's just that, and going back through history and seeing that and know it's repeating. So then you got these just two layers. It's really just two layers of knowledge, looking back in the past, forecast for the future. It's go time, everybody. What can you do this weekend to get a garden out in your yard? Thank you for watching. Please share this with friends, family. We need these kind of conversations to continue to spread. And this type of information, Jeff's got an enormous amount of a vault of information in his head. One of the smartest people I know on the planet here. So share this with friends and family. See what they think about this. A lot of people are more receptive right now to have conversations because they're seeing the emperor has no clothes as well. So these conversations are the easiest you've ever had in your whole life to start this kind of conversation, because the situations that are occurring around us right now. But anyway, bye for now.
It's unknown if early man knew they would be the progenitors of great civilizations, or if they knew when their empires would fall and disappear into history. Fortunately for us as modern man, we can recognize that we are at the precipice, a point in history where we can see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us.